Whistle Foster stopped at the plain, honest, small trade circle at the edge of the Nez Perce wagon camp outside Elk Springs on a Wednesday in October, and paid the young widow at the second blanket $7 full for a wool blanket the trade board said was worth $4. The young widow set her hands still on the loom in front of her. She said, in careful English, "Sir, the blanket is priced at $4. Whistle Foster said, "Ma'am, the blanket is priced at $4 because your people are trading it at the reduced rate the wagon agent has set. The blanket is worth $7 at any mercantile in Cheyenne. I have been running a ranch 6 miles east of Elk Springs for 13 years, and I have bought a great many wool blankets in the Cheyenne mercantile, and I have never in that time been offered a blanket of this quality for less than $7. Please take the $7. Please tell your household that the blanket sold at fair market. Please do not tell the wagon agent." The young widow looked at Whistle Foster a long moment. She said, "Sir, what is your name?" He said, "Whistle Foster. The name is a childhood name that stuck. I am 36. I am widowed. I have a ranch. Please take the $7, ma'am." She took the $7. She said, "My name is Kaya Alahani. My aunt is Fireweed. My nephew is called Otter. Fireweed weaves the small ones. Otter helps me card the wool." Whistle Foster said, "Ma'am, I am obliged for the blanket. Would you weave me another? I have a hand at the ranch, a 15-year-old boy called Rufe, who needs a plain wool blanket for winter. I would pay $7 for his also." Kaya Alani said, "I will weave it, sir. Come back in 10 days. He came back in 10 days. He paid $7. He came back in 21 days for a third blanket. He paid $7. He came back in 38 days for a fourth. He paid $7. By the fifth blanket, the whole small trade circle had heard about the rancher, who paid $7 for a $4 blanket, and the other 3 weavers had begun to charge Whistle Foster $7 as well, and had begun to weave better blankets to justify it. The wagon agent, in the plain honest privacy of his own cabin, said the $7 rancher was going to raise the whole camp's rate. He did not, however, complain to Whistle Foster, because Whistle Foster was the county judge's cousin. Kaya Alani, on the 5th visit, said, "Sir." Whistle Foster said, "Kaya." She said, "Whistle, may I ask you a plain thing?" He said, "Please." She said, "You come every 10 days. You buy a blanket every 10 days. You have bought 5 blankets. Your ranch does not need 5 blankets, and you are not selling them at Cheyenne. Where are the 5 blankets?" Whistle Foster said, "Ma'am, 4 of them are on the 4 hands of my ranch. One is on my Aunt Ada, who lives in Elk Springs, and who I gave one of them for her 63rd birthday last week. In the spring, when the snow melts and the wagons move, I will not need blankets. In the winter I will need blankets. It is October." Kaya said, "In the spring the wagons move where?" Whistle Foster said, "Ma'am, the Nez Perce agency has said the wagon camp moves in April to the new Lapwai Reservation in Idaho Territory. That is 600 miles. Kaya said, "That is 600 miles. Whistle Foster said, "It is." Kaya said, "Whistle, speak plainly." Whistle Foster took his hat off. He held it in his hand. He said, "Kaya, I have been buying a blanket every 10 days for 2 reasons. The first is that they are fair blankets, and I pay fair for a fair blanket. The second is that I have wanted to know you, and your aunt, and your nephew, and I have not known a plainer way to come to know you than to buy a blanket every 10 days at $7. That is the plain second reason. I am telling it now because I have been meaning to for 3 visits. I did not know how. I have known how since I sat down at my plank table last night." He said, "The plainer reason is what I would like to say next. Please permit me to say it." Kaya said, "Please say it." He said, "If, when the wagons go to Idaho Territory in April, you and Fireweed and Otter would consider not going with them, my ranch has a small guest cabin behind the main house. It has 3 rooms and a good stove. It has been empty since my mother died in '79. I would like to offer it to the 3 of you, for as long as you wish to be at Elk Springs. You would be under my roof, but not in my house. You would be free to trade at Elk Springs. You would be paid at any weaving I bought at whatever the fair Cheyenne rate was. If, in that longer arrangement, You and I came to know each other beyond the plain business of the loom. I would consider that a plain, honest blessing. If we did not, I would consider the arrangement of the cabin plainly good on its own merits. I am asking. Please answer at your leisure. I will come back in 10 days. Kaya Alani sat at her loom with her hands still on the wool. She said, "Whistle Foster." He said, "Yes." She said, "I will speak with Fireweed. I will speak with Otter. I will speak with my brother's brother-in-law, who is our elder here. I will answer in 10 days. Whistle Foster said, "Please." He tipped his hat. He drove home. He came back in 10 days. Kaya at her loom said, "Whistle." He said, "Kaya." She said, "We have spoken. Fireweed has spoken. Otter has spoken. The elder has blessed the plan. We will come to your cabin in April instead of going to Lapwai." Whistle Foster said, "Good." Kaya said, "There is one more thing. My people at Lapwai will still be my people. I will ride to Lapwai for the summer solstice ceremony each year and for the winter first snow. Otter will grow up learning both languages and both households. Fireweed will teach him the old songs. That is our request." Whistle Foster said, "It is not a request. It is the plain, honest shape of it." Kaya said, "Then in April we come." They came in April. The wagon camp had moved by then. Kaya and Fireweed and Otter moved into the small guest cabin behind Whistle Foster's ranch house on the 2nd day of April, with 3 loaded wagons of their own weaving looms and household. Rufe helped them unload. Aunt Ada from Elk Springs came out for the weekend to welcome them and to bring a plate of ginger cake. Kaya took her loom to the porch of the guest cabin. She began to weave. Otter began to help. Fireweed began to weave small pieces for the mercantile at Elk Springs. By June, the Elk Springs mercantile was selling the Foster Alani household's blankets at a fair rate and paying honest. And by August, Kaya had a small, honest weaving business that supported the household independently of the ranch. Whistle Foster did not press. He came to the guest cabin porch each evening at 6 with a plain tin cup of coffee. He sat on the porch step. He spoke with Kaya. He spoke with Fireweed. He watched Otter build a small, honest fence with a set of small carpentry tools Whistle had made for him. He did not, in April, or in May, or in June, ask Kaya any question beyond the plain, honest questions of a plain, honest neighbor. In July, on the porch step, at supper, Kaya said, "Whistle." He said, "Kaya." She said, "The plainer reason of last October." He said, "Yes." She said, "I am ready to speak plainly about it." Whistle Foster set his coffee cup down. He said, "Please." She said, "I have come to know you plainly for 4 months. I have watched you at the plank table with Rufe, and at the porch step with Fireweed, and at the small fence with Otter. I have watched you with your Aunt Ada when she comes on Sundays. I have watched you with your foreman. I have watched you with your horse. I have watched you say things, and I have watched you not say them. You are a plain, honest man. You are the plain, honest neighbor I would have been very sorry to have missed if the wagons had gone to Lapwai in April with me on them. I am asking, at your porch step, whether you would consider marrying me." Whistle Foster said, "Kaya Alani." He said, "Yes." She said, "Then we will." Elder Two Rivers of Lapwai rode down to Elk Springs in September and blessed the marriage of Kaya Alani and Whistle Foster in the ceremony of his people at the guest cabin, with Fireweed and Otter beside them, and with the Foster ranch crew in a plain, respectful circle at the yard's edge. The circuit preacher, at Kaya's request, blessed the marriage a second time, 3 days later, in the front room of the Foster ranch house, with the Aunt Ada in attendance, and with the elder Two Rivers in the front row as an honored guest. 2 years on a warm September evening at the Foster ranch, Kaya Alani Foster sat at the porch step of the guest cabin, with Whistle beside her, and their small daughter Elk Woman, 10 months old, asleep against her chest. Fireweed sat in a rocker on the porch weaving. Otter, 10 now, was in the pasture teaching a small brown mare of his own, called Wagons, the plain, honest habit of standing still while a child brushed her mane. Whistle Foster said, "Kaya." Kaya said, "Whistle." He said, The mercantile at Elk Springs has ordered 40 blankets from our household for the winter. Kaya said, I know. He said, at $7 each. Kaya said, at 8. Fireweed set the new rate at Christmas of last year, and the mercantile agreed. Whistle Foster said, Fireweed. Fireweed did not look up from her weaving. Fireweed said, in careful English, Whistle, a plain, honest woman knows the price of her own blanket. I have known it 40 years. Whistle Foster laughed. Kaya laughed. Otter, in the pasture, brushed Wagons' mane. And Kaya Alani Foster, who had sat at her loom in a small, honest trade circle at the edge of a Nez Perce wagon camp at Elk Springs on a Wednesday in October, and had watched a plain, honest rancher pay $7 full for a $4 blanket, put her cheek against her husband's shoulder, and understood that the good, slow country had, in its good, slow way, arranged 4 fair transactions across 10 days each, and 1 plainer reason spoken at a wagon camp loom in October, and had, on the strength of those 5 plain, honest arrivals, given her back the whole rest of a plain, honest household under a plain, honest rancher's roof that no wagon to Lapwai would, or could, or should have taken from her. And so it had been.